Well, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are. And thanks for organising today, Eric. As a small, relatively new company, we're very honoured to win this award, and grateful for it. And particularly our engineers who aren't on the call today, they worked very hard to get our systems built and designed, and we're glad to be here. As you can see. We are actually a company that does have unitary towers, but we also specialize, and our main bread and butter, if you want, is split systems, which you see three images of there. Um, uh, my background particularly is in the Australian market as well, where split systems are a dominant part of the market mixed down there, and we decided that there was a role for them in the USA. So that's one of their motivations for coming and developing it for the USA market. We have three models, basically two at 50 gallons, which are two 40 volt and a 120 volt. We answered a need, and a lot of people are asking for a 120 volt version, particularly in sort of mobile home environments where maybe the 240 would be too much of a reach for the load. So we've got a 120 volt and a 240 volt and a 50 gallon, and in the 80 gallon we only have a 240 volt because it just needs a bit more muscle all around. As certifications, I like to joke that these tanks have more stickers on them now than a Formula One race car. We've got the Energy Star 5.0, we've got the Energy Star Advanced Communication 1.2. We have the NEO ratings of 3 to 4, depending on which tank it is. Obviously, we're UL listed. We are EcoPort certified with the CTA 2045, which will allow utilities to add their modules if they want and to be able to talk to these units for demand response, time of use events, etc. We are JA13 compliant, which is a big deal, particularly, well, in quite a few markets now, but in California, the time of use is becoming very popular. And we're California Energy Commission listed. So there they are, and you can see in the drawings, they are heat pumps, which are the outside unit here, are the main developer of the heat, if you want, but we do have backup elements in all of these units, which are, you can see by the two outlets on each, or the covers here. All the units have two backup elements, the 3500 watts in the 240 or 1000 watt elements in the 120 volt. So, you can run these units in hybrid mode, heat pump only mode, or if something should happen, they can operate in just element only. But, we believe, and particularly in my own home, for example, I've got my own model without the elements, really as an experiment here in California, and I don't need elements at all. The heat pumps are good enough by themselves. But I guess I liken the journey here a little bit like going from gas cars to full electric. People get a bit worried about the range, so a lot of people are buying hybrid cars. And I think these water tanks or these water heaters with backup elements are that comfort level when people are used to elements. So, but I would bet in half a dozen years from now, in the southern half of this great country, a lot of people will be just having heat pumps only without the elements because they realize that they actually don't need them. Okay, next slide, please. Right, communications is obviously key in this modern day when we're all trying to electrify and utilities are trying to match loads with, peak loads and off-peak loads and solar energy coming into the grids, etc. So, there's communication with, big pieces in your domestic home and in small commercial environment like heat pump water heaters. It's a definite advantage for people to be able to talk to their systems. And we have an app, we have a control panel on the unit where you can make all the adjustments that you want on the unit. You can do it from the app remotely, and also with the Eco Port attached to this unit. Utilities, as I mentioned earlier, can do demand response, or we can set in time of use rates per utility, to make life, I guess, easier and simpler and more responsive to all users in the market. It is, I think, it's just one of those pieces where we're all trying to become, less, well, tread with lighter carbon footprints, and this is one way of doing it. And for everyone's knowledge, there is a backup battery within our systems so that even if power goes out, these systems will still work. So that's it. This is really, we're part of the energy migration, energy journey. So we're ready for what utilities will need for the future, we believe. So there we are. Next slide, please. We consider, with the original tanks you saw on the first slide, one of our tanks is what we call a slimline tank. It's only 18.5 inches wide. And we are particularly targeting, I guess, small spaces, tight spaces in retrofit environments, not so much in new builds, because I guess new builds are getting more accommodating. But ADUs, we're even good discussions with a tiny home builder at the moment where space is a premium, mobile homes. The slimline tank will fit in all of those tight understairs in little closet spaces, and we designed that particularly to do that. And because the heat pump unit itself will be outside on a balcony, on the ground, on a wall, then a lot of the venting, noise issues, etc., go outside, because the water tank itself is purely that, it's a storage tank for the hot water, and all the action is going on outside with the heat pump. As I mentioned earlier, we have a 120 volt version, which means you don't have to do a panel upgrade, etc. And we supply a thermostatic mixing valve with the unit, and you can heat the water up to 140. In fact, you can go up to 160 degrees. And with the mixing valve, that'll bring that back down to 120 when you add some cold water. What that really does, it means a 50-gallon tank is really probably a useful capacity of 65 gallons, because you're superheating the water and adding some cold on the way through. So that really just lifts the available hot water to the family. So I guess that is it in a nutshell. Obviously, I can go through a lot more technical detail when we've got more than 5 or 6 minutes, but that's really us. We are a split system specialist. We see a role for them in this market along with unitary towers. And the message is that we are looking for small spaces, space constraint areas. We think we will work well there. And we do have a 120 volt version for people who don't want to upgrade panels or run, extra voltage. So that's it. I guess I will open it up to questions and answers. My colleagues, Scott Wilson and Carl Uti, are also on the call, and they may jump in as well. So if there's any questions, happy to hear them. There's our contact details that will be in the slide deck. And we'd be more than happy for any of the utilities on board today, or anyone else interested, to run full educational webinars at your leisure anytime in the future.